up, everybody? It's Mark here, and I'm going to do something a little bit different today. After speaking with several people during matchmaking, I was trying to figure out, the end of it. They were all like, "Well, how do you DPS so good?" and that kind of thing, and it got me thinking maybe I need to make a DPS video based not necessarily in deep detail, just the basics of how to DPS, because the game does not do a very good job of explaining, what you need to do and how you need to do it. All right, first off, I'm going to start out by saying the striker is broken and you should not use it. Just don't use it. One, the stacks are too hard to build, and hit registration being what it is, you're not going to get the DPS you think you're going to get. I mean, you look at it and it just looks like it's going to be amazing. Sadly, that is not the case. Right now, the top gun, as most of you should already be aware, is the M1A. The Baker's Dozen is probably the best version of this. I do have let me see if I can find it here. I do have another version that's really good as well. Just different talents. I mean, basically I look for anything above 12%. I can live with not being able to do 3% more DPS. Now, if I was doing a legendary build, yeah, I would probably, count that in as close as possible. Try to get that, just absolute max rolls. That being said, let's break that down, though. All right, so you've got rifle damage, you've got critical hit damage, and then you got your, your optional attribute. All right, almost always you're going to want damage to target out of cover, and I cannot stress that enough. One, not every enemy is going to have armor, so this applies to, I would say, 75% of all situations. Not to mention, it's always going to be available on your heavies, and that is, I think, most people's problems, taking down the heavies. You can also, I also consider crit or crit hit damage to also be very viable right now. Basically, weapon damage, damage to target out of cover, crit damage, critical hit damage, and then you can just kind of decipher it out. Rifles are in just the best place, gentlemen. Best place. Flip that around. The next up will definitely be an LMG. And the reason why is twofold. One, base rolled damage out of cover. As much damage out of cover as you can get. The big thing here is, and I'm sure it's going to get nerfed at some time, gentlemen, but right now we have a weapon that shoots about 200 rounds more. I'm talking about the infantry MG5. It shoots so much faster than everything else in the LMG category, and it only does about 20,000 damage less. It also has a very strange headshot modifier that gives it way more headshot damage for whatever reason, although I do find it a little difficult to headshot an enemy with an LMG. That being said, we're going to keep moving. For your basic build, Providence, gentlemen. Just straight Providence. I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, I don't know why they did it this way, but it's the only... Headshot damage is not great, but critical hit chance 10% and critical hit damage 15%, and you just want red rolls. I cannot stress that enough. All red rolls. The chest piece is the one piece that I'm a little iffy on, because Obliterate is a very good target, or a very good talent. Alright, every crit, because you're stacking all that crit and crit hit damage, you won't obliterate. There's that build up to the 15%, but at the top of the game, especially on those big heavy guys where it takes lots of rounds to take them down, you're going to be maxed out. No questions, you're going to be maxed out. Now you can, another good one that is a little bit hard to get is the sacrifice. Alright, the sacrifice, if you can get a really good rolled one, can be absolutely phenomenal. But the takeaway to that is 30% more damage per shot. You have to look at you'll be taking 60% more damage. Alright, gentlemen, you can look over at my stats. At 6 reds, you're going to be rocking around 700k armor. 700k armor is about a burst, essentially, in heroic. In legendary, it just gets worse than that. Like, I don't understand what they're doing right now with the enemy's damage. I mean, it takes shot after shot to put something down. On the flip side to that is, if you're caught out of cover, they instantly melt you. Next up, the next, I would say, big item that you want is Vigilance on your backpack. Alright, Vigilance gives you 25% weapon damage, and the only way you lose that is by taking damage. And in all honesty, losing the 25% for 4 seconds is not that big a deal. With as low armor as you have, you're not going to be wanting to get shot ever, really. If you can get some decent rolls, I would really like to round this out with a better roll on the core attributes, but it is what it is. The two quote-unquote best in slot items right now, we have the Contractor's Gloves, and the big thing you want to pay attention to here is that 11% damage to armor. Now, I was lucky enough to get a quote-unquote God roll. That 11% damage to armor, it's always on there. Always. It is by far the best in slot item for the gloves. Nothing beats it. Next up, knee pads. Fox's Prayer. Alright, a lot of people are not seeing this. This was the item, this was at the vendor, I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago at the clan vendor. Why everyone did not pick this up, I do not know. This is worth farming way more than any exotic out there. That's right, gentlemen. More than any exotic out there. Alright, 15% damage to target out of cover. I cannot stress it enough how good that is. Now, the repair skills I could definitely roll off if I would have gotten a better roll on my weapon damage, but like I said, it is what it is. Skills are the big thing, man. You can toss them up any way you like. I usually roll a heal skill, mostly the drone fixer. I mean, everything else has a super long cooldown or is not nearly as effective as a hit a button, it floats around behind you, heals you. Now, next up, I usually use either the Blinder Firefly or the Pulse Jammer. Alright, one of those two items. And it depends on who it's who we're fighting against. Alright, Black Tusk, Jammer. Hands down, one of the best things you can have. The radius got increased to 22 meters, just base. I mean, it's got what I consider a lengthy cooldown at 27 seconds. I really hope they look at that, and I really hope that gets brought down to like maybe 20 seconds. I feel like 20 seconds is probably fair, especially considering when you play Black Tusk, everything's electronics. I mean, everything. moving right along. Back to the Firefly. All right, Firefly has a extremely lengthy cooldown at almost 50 seconds with 6 reds. So the big takeaway to this is that with that big cooldown, they're going to be blind for 6 seconds. All right. Those big guys, especially your nail gun, your nail gun heavies, and your flame heavies, hit them with this thing and lay into them. They will not shoot at you while blind. That being said, some of the larger guys will just kind of truck over to you because, in heroics and legendaries, they start acting really funny. So that's just part of their UI. Guys, I can't stress to you enough, DPS should be running reds. There's really nothing else I can say about it. If you feel like you're too squishy, roll, instead of having crit hit chance, or like I could do without that weapon handling right there, like instead of rolling that, roll armor, get some armor regen, get some health, improve your heals, do whatever you need to do, but I'm telling y'all, being able to kill something before it kills you is going to be so much better in the long run. The last thing I want to talk about is the Coyote's Mask. All right, so there's a big thing here. One, in a matchmaking group, you kind of need to gauge what other people are wearing. If 2 people are already wearing this mask, the chances of you getting all 3 buffs if you wear yours is pretty slim. Most of the time, you're going to get the 15 to 25 meter and the 25 plus meter buffs, which is already more than enough. I mean, it's pretty nice to get the 25% critical hit damage for the short range buff, but there's a good chance you'll never see it. So what I do is I keep this in my inventory, and I flip back and forth between my main mask and my secondary mask. All right, so the big thing about Cody's Mask is that it buffs everybody's damage, having more crit, more critical hit chance. It's going to buff everybody, whereas me by myself with my mask is only going to buff me. So I know everybody likes to see those big DPS scores at the end of the match or the end of the run, whatever it happens to be, but I'm telling you guys right now, team play is the next level. Like, you have to be able to do it. All right, guys. I know I'm trying to keep this video short because I want it to be just basically, how to DPS. So if you have any questions, hit me up. Like, subscribe. I'm going to be trying to do this all the time, guys. I'm going to try to bring y'all some good videos. I'm going to try to bring y'all some tips I ain't seen, or maybe I'm not seeing people give y'all. But anyway, it's been real, man, and I've been Mark. I'm out.